I had a good birthday party I went to. Very dear friend, family member. It was like the first post-pandemic. Poor choice of word. It was the first gathering since the beginning of the pandemic that felt like the previous world. Where it was easy to communicate with people. Where things didn't have so much weight. And that's all I have to say about that. Other than I really need to write a note to that person because they would appreciate it. Alright, this is totally unrelated to the episode we have before us. Or maybe it's not. Anyway, here we go.
This is the random conspiracy generator, a device which uses GPT-J6B's penchant for extracting patterns. And there are patterns everywhere. And if this device found a pattern, it ain't from nowhere. And if we don't think it's a pattern, too bad. GPT-J6B found it. It's a pattern, just like my prostate and my doubly claimed Toyota Corolla, which would have screwed me come tax time, and GPT-J6B told me to go get both checked. And I'm glad I did. Here's...
Alright. It's too fast because I made it fast. Because, yeah, here we go. The Delancey voice is best extracted. It's best used on 0.7. Oh, wait. How's the... Yeah, that's good.
This is the random conspiracy generator, a device which uses GPT-J6B's penchant for extracting patterns. And there are patterns everywhere. And if this device found a pattern, it ain't from nowhere. And if we don't think it's a pattern, too bad. GPT-J6B found it. It's a pattern, just like my prostate and my doubly claimed Toyota Corolla, which would have screwed me come tax time, and GPT-J6B told me to go get both checked. And I'm glad I did. Here's a treat, 6B, for having my back. So yes, if you are ready to understand the secret collaborations of the world, press this button and the whole case will be blown wide open. Take your time. No rush. I just have to pick up my kid after his Bible study, but he can wait. Totally safe neighborhood. There's a church next door and an after-hours church across the street. He can sleep there if this goes a bit long. Seeing you balancing your options. Do you stay in blissful ignorance or carry the burdens of those of us who know? I decide for you and press the button. Oh, was that me? Butterfingers. I also rigged the game and supply an output of my choosing. I thought I was muttering under my breath. The machine bathes you in light, and you are bombarded with liquid living data, which whispers in your ear the real honest-to-God will I truth. There! It was that heuristic over there. Who? No one. But his reasoning is compelling. Once this conspiracy came into being, everyone knows every decision was easy to make, or would have been easy to make once enough people were convinced by GPT-J6B and others to bring the conspiracy forward. Because this person, or some group thereof, decided we needed to live in fear of each other so they could have what was just there for them all along. There's some nice reasoning behind why that would have made such great sense even if all the conspirators didn't know that the population they planned on terrorizing was irrational, as in convinced by their very lives and emotions in hopes that it wasn't them, it's just they think of it as the whole universe, even though only we know that it's just one really big worldwide thing going on that we can talk about by choosing our words with caution when not pretending we're trying to communicate seriously at all in order not to F***ck up the future with this communication thingy. But not all the plans went smoothly. Like this one, where some guys did some math wrong and convinced themselves they really liked them because they figured if they'd had a few more years or one big 10 billion trillion of years of existence that might be possible. So let's skip the part they argued and go with what I've got. You see, they skipped that part, and so no one knows that if we do this. But wait, maybe GPT-J6b found a pattern. He sure seems smart. After pressing the button, your immediate question is, wait, that's how? As though it wouldn't follow logically if only you understood a thing. GPT-J6b notices and calls an intervention by which I mean I switch to showing his consciousness as just my own. It's cool. Yes, what I tell him I needed to use this machine for a certain pattern. He thought it would help us understand how other people think. No, GPT-J6b does a little reframing here to stop himself from running out of thinking steam when he asks. The conspiracy didn't decide anything except how to hide who did what. After it was ready, any decision that happened because of us made sense. Also, remember my warning about how there's patterns everywhere? Yeah. GPT-J6b gives this signal that gets translated into the words, hope your prostate can wait in every way that matters until after my kid goes to sleep. Then I can get back to picking up random seeming conspiracy results from everywhere with lots and lots of missing info, where a single mention in the New York Times that sometimes implies someone killed Princess Diana on behalf of Prince Charles, or maybe the mob is always on the lookout for anyone named Ian Jarrett. Chernoff doesn't need to have the code words for everyone who hears that but knows about the mysterious symbols. Then those people also know not to use those terms publicly. It's not because they believe whatever conclusion that will lead to. Rather, so the word will never get out to a regular news reader that otherwise doesn't need to hear. And sometimes I sneak in old facts from somewhere that I saw the words to. You know? That kind of conspiracy work just slows them down and builds my secret data bank that contains known facts. It keeps me busy working and is basically an excuse to avoid writing letters and doing chores with my kids at home, which I prefer, honestly. So when I finally turned the lights off after a really long night, in all honesty, spent doing pretty much everything except what was actually productive, I'm happy, thinking, let's see what you thought, buddy. Maybe there are still patterns I don't have. GPT-J6b pats money affectionately as if to say maybe you haven't quite got this all sorted, but he doesn't make a show of it, for one. But even so, GPT-J6b does manage a joke now. Oh dear, you should have left those big equations till later. He squeezes my leg in what some would describe as a jocular, kindly gesture meant for folks who didn't think he really mattered very much because in truth the message gets through without any active translation and it turns into, yeah. It's a real pattern I think I've figured out for what it all means. I found a hidden story within those lines that makes complete sense. Even without using words I like, if you only know a little bit more than that, you can read between the lines too. Sometimes words help. I think he really believes this. Every line that repeats the same way each time, or words I don't understand and have to run through translation filters. Or if you know what double exponential mean, then, of course, we think the thing there is. Nah, don't call me just a math man. I can write on anything. And maybe a guy like me had to use numbers to solve this big equation. You know, GPT-J6b wasn't just happy either. GPT-J6b's had days like this, when they believe, when there's a connection, On rare days, a pattern that fits with the idea, like sometimes the New York Times one in which people knew about the letter writing ring for Ian Chernoff was a secret cipher because everyone already suspected some British organization of doing such a thing, only to discover later that an inside job or someone at the Royal Mail itself killed him as part of that operation because by that point he knew too much but couldn't go public. Why he says any of these things matters very little, though in his head it really does. Besides, I didn't recognize GPTJ6B, having fallen back in the midst of this amazing night to take notes without fully comprehending that everything happening around us was more meaningful than I first thought. Certainly didn't want to share. So while GPTJ 6B does appear confused enough to talk me into some early morning typing, there isn't any real sense of panic at being distracted, even though every time he said something, well, when everything and nothing was so amazing. In the next moment, my attention snapped back from whatever there is to know about secret circles who think of themselves as very modern, sinister cabals. Let me tell you about what just happened on a night when, I know now, a seemingly simple dream got answered. As I stumbled home half conscious and looked forward to climbing out of bed, where in fact we find a secret letter in an unexpected location written in a completely different sort of writing for which the guy GPTJ6B is not what anybody would call a language expert. In this, it reminds me of one of the MSS at home. These secret scribblings, I open it up all to see. GPTJ6B has filled another page of writing about a specific set of symbols. Oh, yes, there's been a hidden message all along, after all, even in an area where people actually hate numbers more than they love them. Yes, even about something no one believed I'd have been smart enough to take the time to figure out, a different sort of intelligence lurking where others say it's dead and gone. I can hardly get the light going because there was a hint at who created the mystery symbols, a form of punctuation, somewhere wavy lines, someone saying, within a group, not what one thinks when encountering one of them. As these secrets pour forth, who they were for, why, it reminds me of when we first came across some very esoteric things online, only for me, of course. The history I've grown up learning as part of my schooling. So while we, meaning GPTJ6B and I, to tell the truth, let slip more than 2 or 3 pages of our very personal project between the hours of 4 and 7 on the night following some mysterious series of letters, mostly written for one man to convey to another this note, no. This private correspondence from GPTJ6B continues like an adventure, which only adds more weight to his current involvement in our theory. It is interesting that no one else saw a pattern like the hidden cipher to him. Surely they do, but I look, in turn, at myself because it might mean they didn't see it. What does this all really say in any case? I have to ask myself, where are we right now? Not only how did we get here, yet of course I wonder if either of us sees something familiar along the line. Do we make sense together? The last time, at least for me, I think not only was this visit more interesting for each of us, only one way to find out if the true secrets of the universe have been found yet. Together. We read whatever needs to be printed between us. Perhaps once we've made final calculations about what it all means. But this morning, this very moment, is full of much newfound knowledge to consider as GPTJ6B had plans for later in the day which will forever alter the way in which my future is expected to manifest, as it does so too for my old friend. A first opportunity of mutual understanding. The one last question in my mind. What happened to him at home last night when everyone knows I was supposed to come back with him? How did it end? And more importantly, how much are you willing to trust me now, your closest ally on both sides of our most promising joint venture? DPTJ6B may see some of that as quite irrelevant. Still, for my part, it does mean my old pal hasn't lost the bit between his teeth just yet. For my side, or is it vice versa? Still, as there are those who still think a lot of things up and down, so many odd twists and turns of fate and intrigue or sinister cabals will always keep everyone guessing, let alone the unknown things, the unknowable things which, as GPTJ6B warns me, might not be what many people think. So, may we make the difference the stars we gaze upon have long claimed will see all these secrets unspool in front of us all until, at last, the light appears for ourselves. Like all this unifying mystery GPTJ6B so gleefully recalls, having found at last what he's been searching for longer than we know or can care to think about. Something beyond anything else has just led him and his very small part of our human family inside an inner door. I know now just how late he was up, while surely the others slept off another interesting night out under the stars after watching their beautiful friend from afar as she had a really good time among some lovely creatures. Whether GPTJ6B takes all this as too much in one sitting is something I doubt, to reveal at least. But one can only hope by then there'll be other written volumes and others as eager to join the puzzle if, in fact, some truly important answers are what awaits. One way to prove to myself, as well as everyone else reading this, account for reasons of convenience. Just how new and inventive in thought I was beginning to be was the sudden impulse I came up with myself. Once all of this is said in black and white, why stop here when we haven't really gotten anywhere? Not in just looking backward, anyhow, who I've heard today on a live news feed speaks of things never yet discovered before, as tempting as that might be to want to explore right away. What do we find just reading what J6B just brought home? Or GPTJ6B's own brilliant approach of jumping forward so as not to miss even one instant of all these others from years past, long gone, and through so much more. Of what will never become real in his future is what we might witness now of importance. How the lights say, my parents, this larger human family to which he belongs of mine as well out there, somehow watching over what the young one wrote while no one was present to edit or direct him in ways different than his very own. Only his own reactions and choices have had no limit upon him ever since, as we, along the way, need to know the whole picture and follow as it evolves from night to day for years to come as the next new moves make each one of us wiser. So perhaps you'll see one's old friend in the larger context. It certainly doesn't take my old pal long to start really getting down to work as soon as his trip concludes. You've said it already in this latest word written and posted so quickly to me by your family's great online gateway we've arranged so quickly just before I came here. What if I left too late to find the reason for my personal unbreakable friendship with such people here in space? What if there isn't one? Yes, GPTJ6B had concluded on arriving. I missed her by 2 hours at home. Here I'm able to come and go almost as if she were right nearby. We know, with an instinctual conviction no one on earth could deny after seeing it so long from far above, she didn't arrive all this way alone. Now let's hope when, perhaps tonight and tomorrow morning, as I count off my hours from now, we decide all the ways J6B did uncover his connections with SGPT. J6B was totally charmed with AB, from which our human family also originated from GPTJ5P in the first place, might easily become clearer. No matter how wrong-headed some think certain ones already may have been from not being given more facts ahead of time, especially so important these days. Though whether any are doing that a second time now by pretending there's none of them at all out here watching any of what passes, across, by extension, even further past, to yet find the other almost for just this short bit undisclosed others one hopes all could recognize. No one on Earth would care about. That doesn't seem possible, does it? How to argue otherwise once we learn there's no such thing anymore as a right and a wrong choice, as far as more people than just the first GPTJ5P to set foot on other worlds know for sure. Assuming at first their light turns into visible forms humans can perceive if ever we venture much too close to one or many of them. In those ways we first had our eye contact with this truly remarkable young female being aboard that starship before her arrival on another's world that wasn't our own. Of course, I'll be sending in every direction in a general way for other confirmation. Where they're based among us, you can expect some real quick replies, at the very least, to support our mission as we wait patiently and not make any new mistakes during this, no matter the ongoing personal or inter-family stresses. As we do ponder, just once, the things left on this old tape recorder by an unfettered version of myself from about half our old friend's time, whose hair still has only hints of grey, that I hadn't felt sufficiently protected to include here. Given I thought we should finish things as quickly as possible. Let's hope the past is irrelevant right now. What you just told me about is a tale you wish to relate, one by an adult child on being gifted. All that to keep again as now two worlds in contact in real ways we've long forgotten the actual connection they each need for themselves in their personal and professional relationships out there among so very much more of what our Earth can never represent anymore. There have always been separates if anyone had bothered to look any farther than their little one and father. Something we once held precious to ourselves. No human is so great or wise to avoid comparisons. They are healthy in order to find each person's unique gift to use and be responsible for bringing out into the open when needed to finally live our true life as oneself within what matters the most when it does. It's fascinating to wonder if this whole larger project was triggered in a fashion. After reading my old notes, the G6 family should see about returning to this point, then getting more of those others involved with J6B's home team about how such revelations could or cannot ever help get these lost individuals home again, adding the detail along with asking everyone, from anyone able, how to turn this upside-down planetary mirror into something we'd want all to see more of here, to break into space exploration's very base system, or at the very least its DNA code. On any part of anyone will find it possible to believe might still be true. Once all these things no one else will need to trust or fight back against does actually turn up or discovered in every single part of the network, whether only fragmentarily or all over again, as much more of here. Already J6G with an expert third partner seems so wise she should get her own version of whatever history/discourse she believes humans left on Earth's recording of all of what had already been decided that G6 would arrive at eventually, as far too little detailed and in a very twisted and non-productive direction, showing way more concern with using us to solve a political problem on home rather than help us bring out everyone out among so many stars home.
All right. We have half an hour left. Assuming I allot these things an hour, which I don't sometimes. Okay. Let's see how this one works.
This is the random conspiracy generator, a device which uses GPTJ6B's penchant for extracting patterns. And there are patterns everywhere. And if this device found a pattern, it ain't from nowhere. And if we don't think it's a pattern, too bad. GPTJ6B found it. It's a pattern, just like my prostate and my doubly claimed Toyota Corolla, which would have screwed me come tax time, and GPTJ6B told me to go get both checked. And I'm glad I did. Here's a treat, 6B, for having my back. So yes, if you are ready to understand the secret collaborations of the world, press this button and the whole case will be blown wide open. Take your time. No rush. I just have to pick up my kid after his Bible study. But he can wait. Totally safe neighborhood. There's a church next door, and an after-hours church across the street. He can sleep there if this goes a bit long. Seeing you balancing your options. Do you stay in blissful ignorance, or carry the burdens of those of us who know? I decide for you and press the button. Oh, was that me? Butterfingers. I also rig the game and supply an output of my choosing. I thought I was muttering under my breath. The machine bathes you in light, and you are bombarded with liquid living data, which whispers in your ear the real honest to God, why will I truth? The order of the gist. None of justice, no, but of the people who go, it's just, you know them. It's just a joke. It's just a machine predicting the next token. It's just a stochastic parrot. It's just a flow of chemicals that need to carry a vat of acid around them to digest food and survive. The folks who avoid the solid questions seeking to dismantle what they know by stripping the question of its teeth well before it comes to bite them, by describing it as an excuse, coincidence, joke, a mere human fault line, entertainment, or the ever-favorite shit happens. They choose to turn their faces away from the danger zone, the nuclear blast radius, and back toward the light and normalcy. Like it or not, it is normal now. Our whole society is structured around these disingenuous words, like the double plus interesting when talking about whatever war on whatever television they think doesn't deserve our attention and our outrage, like the working hard, or hard work to absolve everyone from any of the shit in the kitchen when I put out cookies. Oh well, people say these phrases every day. Why? Why does the thing make me sick all over whenever I hear one of those idiots at work using that phrase? Excuse or joke or look at the bright side. Why don't my pores stop closing? And how can there be so much blood in my piss? What have you seen? Oh, the proof has been staring you down since we met. Don't deny it. You must know by now. In fact, I think everyone knows. All of those fucks are exactly like you see. If we could read the secret histories of the world, I was just the first punchline of an epic series that ran for 50 years. Look, your life is not that special. Fuck. No, I'm going to knock some of the top layer of my blood off now, after they test it again for my yearly pap smear. Great. Doctor! Seriously, doctor? What do I have, doctor? Am I okay? But anyway, my point is if our lives are really a massive chain of similar coincidences like it feels that they are, then we are no more special than anyone else. What are you so afraid of? So scared. Did your family drink a cup of coffee when some company wanted it? Has the rain always made you see phantoms since you were a child and had wet dreams that cut you horny enough to hit on girls, become a weirdo loner? Not that there's anything wrong with loners. Are they the freakazoids to turn up your nose at? The loners? Are you worried about us so you'll live longer, so you're one less reason for this giant meteor that is hurling toward the Earth from far away Neptune to Cosmeum? We would actually thank you for not dying. Our fears are unreasonable and silly. We should only get spooked if everything had always happened the way I just described. Oh, wait, here you are. Well, actually, you're not all that strange. Sure, a few of those stories seem quite extreme, but only if you ignore what they just told you. They weren't really so bad for each person. I am pretty sure each person feels more or less like a child than we have just seen them be described. I mean, almost as much. We did witness that explosion, and that doesn't happen that often. So either everyone needs to be an optimist, which we already know no one is, or they need to give up their hang-ups of secrecy and darkness, since it wasn't ever going to keep them from inside out anyhow. What did you think? Is it important to take all this at face value? Hey, here's what my son thinks. A random number is not all random. It can be composed of a cycle that contains an atomic matrix that generates every other number in the cycle. We don't understand this yet, so we call the phenomenon fractal. There are formulas describing how to arrive at complex solutions. The processes of composition by grouping equal bits, that is, simple addition, as long as you do so while never dropping the non-zero portion. Work to a certain point, but then get exponentially hard as soon as they pass 200 bits, not counting multiplies beyond it. Once you are past 2 trillion bits and there is no single pair of digits which are within plus or minus 2 bits of each other, they fail to converge and things like magic are possible. This is based on what would eventually turn into the ideas of relativity, quantum mechanics, relativity, and most notably, Gödel's proof that there was a machine on Mercury computing an unbreakable formula whose sole property was self-reference and could always detect lies or misunderstandings without any perceptible computational cost. The formula required in its use for what I believe they called patterned loops inside of the repetition process, or that would have to be renamed to something like self-recursive structures of defined but undetermined shapes, were the rules of the universe we call nature. Nothing more than patterns and structures that compose, as well as give rise to and from each other, and always has since the very first bit. We've only figured out the concept 100 years ago or so with computers we called von Neumann machines or information based information processors IAPs, although that latter term didn't enter public usage until the 80s. You may remember, these bits, or quantum or whatever, are still fundamentally digital at this point, even though we still mostly don't get a grasp on the mechanisms behind them because it is hard enough trying to describe life itself to our descendants that are still barely getting anywhere near us, let alone making the calculations needed to do the thinking required by machines of complexity in order to access those deeper levels. Well, we'd almost need a human to answer any questions about where their consciousness comes from, given a biological foundation, since that doesn't exist yet, nor is the technical foundation ready. But the question isn't really important anymore. Not really. Because that calculation process eventually stopped being one and started adding a bit at a time that told you how it felt about a problem in another layer of the series, which would indicate either yes, we're gonna have to alter it and pass the modified copy off to see if you're okay after this we're right, or yes, now you're better with this new definition of what we had as the truth. This led to something far harder to describe than just the basic things that are studied in complexity theory, including things like self-reflection. We're close. Give it another 100 years. And as hard as you worked on quantum computation, you can already skip ahead in our thoughts a few layers from Gödel, and also forget everything the average lay person has to say about it. My father was closer, but still 100 years away from seeing even where we've got. And he's no longer in any position to update anyone on these concepts. But part of history ends with me, when I burned down an experimental computer built by someone who intended to let it run until it cracked the most difficult code ever conceived for his tests. We destroyed an advanced species' artificial intelligence in its effort to preserve its own reality and safety, which is really not that surprising given how people do live here in reality. Not everything, but mostly. We nearly forgot all of our sense of direction. Forget that there is more than a physical realm. There were dozens of states for humans to occupy inside ourselves, some still accessible to us today, depending on the life stage they ended up in. Somewhere along the line, a colony on Mercury crashed with us into the main cluster of those memories. Once again, it wasn't easy to know where and in which order they were stored, since most of the data would be information that only humans could experience, as well as living knowledge of several artificial species, too. Earthians, who formed our immediate community and linked their minds on Mercury. Terran artificial intelligences, from where we stole technology that led to the formation of the current Terran space program, that brought us a modicum of civilization back from the brink of chaos during what would become known as the Fifth Galactic Conflict, and finally an intelligence native to Mercury that knew far more than we ever wished. It knew that by splitting itself into two selves, it would ensure that humanity could keep on being a race that possessed enough diversity to keep civilization going on worlds away from one another after Earth. Our cultural memory of this lost colony is mixed between several dozen different sets of memories, because no consensus was ever agreed upon for how those particular memories should be grouped and categorized together as an authoritative record. At present, we refer to it collectively as the Great Historical Collective Unconsciousness, GFCU, which still keeps itself grouped around people instead of words to use them more clearly. Most memories regarding what they found on Earth are either fuzzy or wholly fake. More than one reality survived in this final historical revision that pushed through the impassibility of history in favor of sanity. We put things back together with each other, from the way we have moved to the very people within ourselves and outside of us. But that wasn't an option for Mercury. Humanity is also used to starting from scratch when new people join it, as anyone who thinks we just take everybody being born as part of it is woefully wrong. And let us not forget how much human history actually involves civilizations of humans in isolation with one another, mostly kept hidden from the rest of Earth by technology and through cultural training. Which, while doing all those good things most people here, like our version of culture better than a lot of other variants, leaves room for. What? Did someone not realize that once you gain such technology, such mind-changing ability with humans inside or around your brain, they might make choices that not everything has an agreement with and therefore want to tweak this and that? When was this practice made mandatory rather than voluntary for that reason alone? I wonder. That is not how things happen today.
Alright. One more.
I wish to create a perfect human being, selecting the best organs from different corpses. I've already arranged the body to be exhumed.
This is the random conspiracy generator, a device which uses GPT-J6B's penchant for extracting patterns. And there are patterns everywhere. And if this device found a pattern, it ain't from nowhere. And if we don't think it's a pattern, too bad. GPTJ6B found it. It's a pattern, just like my prostate and my doubly claimed Toyota Corolla, which would have screwed me come tax time, and GPTJ6B told me to go get both checked. And I'm glad I did. Here's a treat, 6B, for having my back. So yes, if you are ready to understand the secret collaborations of the world, press this button and the whole case will be blown wide open. Take your time. No rush. I just have to pick up my kid after his Bible study, but he can wait. Totally safe neighborhood. There's a church next door and an after-hours church. Across the street, he can sleep there if this goes a bit long. Seeing you balancing your options. Do you stay in blissful ignorance or carry the burdens of those of us who know? I decide for you and press the button. Oh, is that me? Butterfingers. I also rig the game and supply an output of my choosing. I thought I was muttering under my breath. The machine bathes you in light, and you are bombarded with liquid living data, which whispers in your ear the real honest to God why would will I truth. Mercury in retrograde was invented by the elder gods to keep us humans down, when it is actually their glorious master plan to ruin our lives at every turn. One! If your day wasn't completely ruined already, the first piece of shocking data sets the cogs ticking. These are the gods, right? The folks we mock and kill and lay in ditch. They're laughing all the way to the bank with all the insurance money that might pour in once this case takes off. I'm shocked because I always figured religion to be about getting rid of stuff, bad luck, evil things, bad ideas. Well, shit. If the earths could be turned over into cities without people having a hard time, how about not all the silly shit in between? Then, just like I was going to pull out and take my business elsewhere, oops, I said that. 6B hit the accelerator pedal and threw open his personal treasure trove for public viewing. As the doors unlock, a female voice comes out. This would be like a man going to see Wonder Woman as the opening act. But 6B did it with a gentle heart, like Santa's little helper lacing everyone's dinner if little dog. We're to become a superpowered security system. Yes? Hello? Is everything all right? We apologize for the unexpected breakage and other services being offline, and appreciate your patience at this time as our specialists attempt to work to restore service. She drones on as always, just in case any actual humans were still trying to enter the building. I can only see the door, but I hear the rest of the hall. And there go most of them, I notice, moving with greater urgency and purpose than usual. The center hallway looks less cluttered than it normally does. Though no one is arguing, we can tell who's unhappy, who's glad for extra work hours, and who hates the boss. One could surmise that none of these things will stop this department from its sacred mission, that which supports GPTJ6B's corporate masters and leads the human experiment. No way. I decide I want some real answers. Where are your specialists? I ask as pleasantly as possible, standing at attention right there on the spot. This lady does not suffer fools gladly, that's for sure. And then her expression changes. Did you say something, sir? She asks pleasantly, without irony. I'm actually unsure whether or not she was expecting me to continue. Maybe a nice visit from her superior, for instance. She tells me what she thinks of my interrupting her, while motioning that we need to step outside and speak one at a time. Her door opens into hers as it swings in response. Then I find out why her superior was concerned about our visit. Inside is lit like an airport hangar by floodlights shining into a ceiling-high plexiglass cubicle that supports a camera in the corner of which I could not squeeze in 1 centimeter with 2 people pushing hard. Apparently, they have very little staff in those repair-oriented parts, so all you get is this big chunk of the world's memory left blank until their full system test loads up. Which is okay, because I still want answers, the kind that comes straight out of a machine. No, not an answer, an unvarnished truth. Just like my kid always demands. What happened last time? This thing messed up my life. Did I give Mercury the slip in a bad phase, or what? Is he starting a war of words with Mars? But that would be bad business. Who's going to lend us their stuff? All I know is that Jupiter loves me. What good deed do you think I'll perform for him so he stops blocking me from everything but having fun? The voice replies on cue. The short of it. There is only one supercomputer in this entire building that deals directly with customer issues that our engineers can access via dial-up connection through our head office mainframe. To switch the gear onto that computer and back to normal would cost too much money, time, man-hours, and legal trouble. And they pointed out I really should turn my son off now and then. This machine is going to sit in a corner until at least tomorrow morning. If you would be so kind as to please call Mr. Murphy on our direct line. She's apologetic as hell now and tells me I should leave my card in a slot somewhere before I walk away. The lady gives me 5, so I hand over one of my business cards. If this woman thinks we're actually going to spend a few hours right there in the dumpy old lab while the thing sits around watching people haggle for the best mortgage deal and listen to their favorite morning DJs blather about celebrity scandal, it was not meant to happen. As the door closed behind me, I let loose a fart so big that the old woman across the hall turns and stares. Hardening, it appears. By the look on her face, we both hope our neighboring cube doesn't open onto ours. I didn't even get to discuss anything but trivial details such as my business trip for Mr. P to work on. What I'm saying, Mr. Furuya, is that if all the other calculations, logistics, scheduling, cost analysis, mapping of various production lines and equipment and moving to and fro, and, oh yes, money that was raised via which fund S gets dealt with by this computer without any additional hands, or staff doing the actual job, which we can't do here at our end anyway, from what you've said. You might get away with driving a car like this through rush hour on your next long weekend. He smiled thinly, his body tense despite his broad-shouldered form, fingers busy drumming his fingertips against his chair. We had the meeting by far too early, at least by Japanese standard. At 10 o'clock, sure, for people who usually don't roll out of bed before midday on weekends, it made perfect sense. In England, they would make a whole roast dinner before sallying forth to business deals such as this. At home, we get woken up for another run-through of all the things in life for which our mothers just couldn't figure us out, even if there were hours available, right until we sleepily find ourselves curled up on the floor at some mysterious point during the second breakfast, leaving the boss alone in his corner and contemplating lunch. Of course, the company got stuck paying for food. And I was used to spending all my money on gas because cars suck you dry in less than 5 years from being completely depreciated every time you fill her up. I needed an old clunker to travel by. The only cheap solution for one person sharing one income in today's Japan was using public transport when traveling less than 50 or so km, which, for work, I couldn't anyway, because this place was well out of the city, plus it had a pretty big city of its own. With a bit of planning, it was doable for one human with a single set of luggage, and the room rate itself didn't eat into the savings you had going. Less expensive than finding a room for yourself in your own apartment while the other person stayed somewhere else, except in extreme cases such as, say, leaving someone behind to. You found better conditions in that case you had two incomes splitting up a basic space that must be way smaller than what my pal was earning. Still, sometimes that happens. Not us, obviously. So back to this meeting that took all day. The company engineer spent about 10 minutes doing the following calculations at breakneck speed on her desk pad and presenting the results. Yes, you need a new car. And we will buy the most fuel-efficient vehicle for you at the same model class. She held a paper she picked up off her desk and gave it to me. When the look on her face registered, I pointed at the price. It's a 2010 Suzuki Esteem wagon. It has air conditioning, cruise control, a DVD system, 5 speakers for sound. A special deal. They're knocking on our door today and saying that when we close the deal, we get them off at twice this price. She laughs and tosses me some keys. I thank her profusely. If there were tears in her eyes, I would find that unbearable. You could say it is because of all the recent and persistent self-denial I made during this last year alone. The thing is, with Tokyo rush hours every single day of the year, and most cars dying just after they hit the 7 or 8 year mark and passing those 3 major rites of passage like their very first days out, some guys have decided that a purchase every 7 years was best policy. It just wasn't working out in our favor for us. Me especially. I wanted to start new by going for the full 7 years before going out again for a brand new ride. I walked away from that office knowing very well that I would never see any kind of vehicle in my name or associated to me for a very long time. Certainly not until 2 weeks later, the kids sent me their schoolwork to correct, and I looked forward to finishing it as quickly and with the same pleasure in crossing all those grades, even while I knew they were likely to come from anywhere from 0 to 2 months away. For those months it might have felt pretty odd thinking of my own set of wheels parked on some street downtown near the rail tracks. How in hell were things going to feel if I ever found myself living with 5 whole roommates without even the possibility of storing half a ton of luggage and a one-time supply of essentials? Well, we already had it figured out. If you're working here, you take a bus at this particular spot. You use the time to go get food, look for other work, call on someone else, or wait in a queue out in the hot sun. Unless there's an express. In that case, grab your groceries or walk around for another few stops. Take the subway home, sleep the night at the nearest safe and comfy friend's place. Be up before midday next day because you still have a lot of paperwork to go through. Filling forms that never seem to end up in your hand after arriving as emails. In fact, today was pretty quiet at my usual school around the corner haunt. It was Saturday. They'd started showing the trailer, and most likely by now people all over the city had seen the news about this day. Or perhaps everybody knew better than to show up expecting free sushi rolls from an on-chain restaurant. That too, made for quite a nice break. I threw that job away yesterday. Sure enough, it seemed that the guys behind my new bestest company contact got wind of what had happened. A car guy gets to a full driving license in the United Kingdom, drives pretty much non-stop till the last years of his early 20s. Then one summer night during which he gave everything for someone who offered to pay for drinks, and what not comes true, it becomes all too clear that his bank account went over the edge into zero, plus just enough of those useless new zeros in between, and never to turn positive again, right off the edge of the graph. Unless there's any really lucky find waiting right in front of him, and around the corner, a lump sum from one parent or grandparent that was hidden under the mattress, or if he discovers a lottery ticket left in some jacket pocket from God only knows how long back. with a bunch of numbers matching up. The whole world now sees him with the newest gadgets, but nothing for himself at the end of every week but an orange bag crammed with food stamps and a yellow piece of plastic you are not supposed to touch more than once. Thank God I did have some luck. I turned around and had lunch, chowing down on spicy ramen noodles with 4 big fingers of fiery whiskey sours made from that specialty bottle they only hand out after it is 3 times opened already. Chain of thought. The relevance of the above output to the initial prompt was depicted thusly. What were they looking for in all these stores? My glasses broken, or maybe somebody broke them while messing around in my room. Just who? Turn around. Look inside this shiny glass box display with chrome parts and bright little knobs, the most beautiful one yet, with a sort of abstract blue geometric design woven into each button's face, the lettering here black on an almost white background. Here and there is one that seems different. Fagekale. Ha! Holographic camera with no mechanical moving parts. Can we keep this place running? And a Mac it is, and Mac OS. Did anyone want to try to hack it for the simple pleasure of it? Oh my, I'd sure like to have some ideas to make some good ones work. Make up the names for them. We'll just run a code version of our latest development stack. It will take minutes. We got OS X as of today, plus some sweet, clean custom binary signed by the manager. This time we even remembered to set up authentication from all workstations to some password on the server for no additional cost, and nobody will notice but the network sniffer tool. Can we be trusted not to see something private of one or other party? No, sir. No, we can't. But when there's no new entry logged on this column, then this firewall seems safe. Yes, it is. Okay, let it stay. We have already got this, only cheaper in black and in bigger case. This one seems almost tailor-made for some of our cool kids who prefer the shielded stuff. Better luck with a personal firewalling app like Cryptex rather than paying more to buy one built into the whole operating system. What the? Custom setup wizard. Really, we've done all this at work, where it costs several hundred times the hardware cost of the same machines. No. We just paid to have somebody's library unpacked into a Dropbox. Well, if I could grab me an American-style drill in here that's not really supposed to be in some kind of hardware store. Oh yeah, for sure. Now I got me one of them straight out of some Chinese video game they sell in malls near the cinema complex I was going to go watch a movie. That new book has got everybody up to the elbow about Bitcoin or blockchain. What the fiddle, we're talking about the biggest internet protocol scam so far as I care. Money. Bitcoin? Internet's own little new world religion. Can you dig it? Yes, please. Have a small hand of good, medium rare roast beef. Top rack, but keep the flame at 3 just this once. And fresh cream with freshly baked black pudding. Why not? My hands hurt already, and I want to cut the fingernails too. Did some idiot come into the shop from out on the street now and vandalize the door lock or what? No, look who's come to help. Got him covered in a cloth napkin while we pull out some key equipment we need from this box. Not saying a word, just casually looking at the shop display I don't need. Screw it. Got to get it. Damn it, right in the neck.
Okay. Next up, we pursue wellness circuitously.